you are now giving them your power. You are fueling them. They are sucking the life force from you because where your attention goes, energy flows. So if you're busy focusing on this inconsequential hater because you need validation or you struggle with power dynamics, whatever the reason is why you're triggered, you need to sit with that and figure that out for yourself.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Embracing Only podcast with Olivia and Archita. We're super excited for this one because it's going to be a spicy episode as it's our first episode to kick off 2024. We have not had a real talk yet. We've had such amazing guests on the podcast this year. We have a whole slew of phenomenal women that we're going to be engaging with here in the first quarter of the year. But Olivia and I wanted to get together because a lot of things have come up as we've chatted with some of our recent guests. And we want to take this episode to unpack a lot of that stuff and engage with our community on their thoughts as well. So Olivia, what are we going to get into right away?
Yeah, thanks, Archita. And hi, everyone. I can't believe, Archita, you just said that. It's our first episode of the new year. So we have such backed up chitter chatter for you all today. But let's start with this one. So if you've been paying attention on LinkedIn or on Instagram, we've had a slew of really powerful guests. As always, what we like to do for you is recap some of the common themes between our guests. And this one particular theme continues to come up that I have to call out. So there's all sorts of things happening in the world today. We're rolling back DEI progress. So any progress that we made over the last 4 years, we're rolling those back, right? We've got the war in Ukraine happening. We've got the conflict in Gaza that's happening. There's the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's Houthis happening. And then on top of all of that, we have our day-to-day stuff happening in corporate that we're all trying to wrestle with and with our own decisions. And what we noticed with a lot of our guests here is this common theme of being brave and being bold and stepping out of your comfort zone to really have an impact not only on your own life, but on the life of other people around us. And Mita said this really well, Archita, and it's something that struck a chord with me, but she said, are you fighting for just your career or for other people as well? Who are you pulling up with you as you step forward in the fight? And that really struck a chord with me. And before I share how deeply that caused me to reflect, I wanted to ask you, Archita, what did you think about that?
Gosh, like that's the essence of why I think I was in corporate America, though, is I was never fighting for my career alone. But that I think was weaponized a lot of times. Actually, that hit me in many different ways when she shared that. Because for me, it felt like a responsibility I had to carry, which is a fact. Like not one that I was unhappy to have, but one that I felt so grateful to have. That it's my responsibility to, as I'm moving along in my career, I bring other people along. And this journey will never be an only journey ever again for someone else. So that felt like a grateful responsibility. And while shouldering that responsibility early in my career, I was celebrated for creating that space, creating those opportunities, speaking up. But I felt like as I went through the second half of my decade in corporate America, in certain spaces, not all spaces, in certain spaces, it was weaponized almost, where it was weaponized to a fact of you're being too bold, you're being too visible, you're being too ambitious, but you're doing this for yourself. Things like that, where people of the global minority probably never recognized, probably still don't recognize that when people are doing this work, they're doing it for many more that come after them, and they're not just doing it for themselves.
Yeah, Chicha, everything that you're saying here is taking me back. I feel like I'm having flashbacks to different moments in my career. And when we dug into this with Mita, she said a couple things in a similar vein to yours that caused me to think, right? I think as women of color, or when you're in the minority, right?
Global majority call ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So typically, right, when you're in a corporation and you have a passion for this DEI work or for others that look like you, that you want to help raise their voice, we get asked to do more DEI stuff, which is
Yes.
more stuff on our plate. And then at some point in time, I don't know if you ever fell into this trap, but I feel like I fell into the trap early in my career where it was because I was so willing to be vocal. All of a sudden, I became the face of DEI.
Yeah.
And I was
Or-
like, hold on. I actually don't want this responsibility. I do want to help people, but I don't want to be the face of DEI. And then Mita said, it was very interesting. She said, we talked about the consequences of speaking up too early in your career, and you
Yeah.
call it weaponizing. So there's this interesting dynamic between one, creating more work for yourself, taking on this extra responsibility and kind of picking up that flag and running with it and saying, I'm going to help as many people as possible. And there's this other responsibility of how do you elevate yourself first so that you're then in a position where you can reach back and help others with less fear of consequences of your actions. How did you deal with that?
Gosh, okay. So I would say two things that Olivia. One, I really struggle when people say that second half of what you shared, which is get to a place first where you have less fear of consequences and then pull other people up. I really struggle with that because if I had waited for myself to become the director of marketing, for instance, and then had started my advocacy work, I would have just done an injustice to every single human that came after me. And there were a lot of individuals I'm so thankful that came after me because I would never have given them a chance to thrive in the workplace if I had waited for 10 years or 12 years of my corporate life. Now, what I did do in those 10 to 12 years was I found spaces and places where, yes, I took on, as they say in the Harvard Business Review article, that women take on 200 plus hours of housework in companies. I did take on 200 plus hours of housework. And for the first decade of my career, through ERGs or through other events for the team, etc., in my intent, pure intent for what didn't work for me, how can I change it for the next person coming up along the way? In my own small ways, right? So whether it be through programming, whether it be introducing new systems in place, etc. But in the second decade, as I started trying to poke systemic change directly, I realized that there was extreme resistance because they were just like, leave it to that event, leave it to you challenging us on stage for 45 minutes and leave it there. Don't come in and then tell me you want to create this dramatic systemic change. And so I recognized something there at that point in time, which was I've had to make a choice to who do I need to bring along on that journey that might help me make this easier in order for it to be palatable. Because now I had a position of power as well, Olivia. I was sitting as the VP of a whole global enterprise ERG. And I was like, I have the power, I have the space. We're going to drive this home even further. And at that point, it was like, you're being too vocal because now it really matters, right? Because earlier it was like, hey, it's nice to have. But now it's like, when she says it at this place of power, it's a must have. And she's going to activate more people to want it. And we as a company, we're not ready to activate on this yet. So this is what I would say for people in the second half of their career. I went to my manager and I was like, I want my housework as part of my performance review goals now. There is no longer, oh, good job, Archita. Hey, high five, or a little thank you drop of gratefulness or whatever. No, this has become more than just housework. This is me helping drive culture. And so I had an amazing conversation with him. And I'm thankful for my manager at that time because we identified two things that we said we're going to focus on and we're going to deliver for the organization. And then he's going to have my back on.
I think that's such a fantastic tip that people can walk away from this conversation with right this second. If you are doing all of this housework, right? If you're being a face, if you're doing speaking engagements, if you're running workshops, if you're willing to mentor and coach people, to get credit for that as you're on your own journey, right? Have that built into your performance review. And it also gives you a little bit of air coverage. I love that tip. And I think, I don't know, Archie, like you and I look at things so differently. And I know this makes you crazy, but I don't know. I felt a little bit differently. You know me, and you know
Yes.
that I've always been a champion for
Yes.
people, women, men, people that look like me, people don't look like me. I'm
Yes.
always willing to help. I literally want to see everybody win. But I will tell you, and this could be my own limiting belief. So I'm being vulnerable with the audience here. It
Yes.
very well could be my own self limiting beliefs. But as I was trying to get myself into what we're calling a position of power, and for me, that was to become a hiring manager.
Yes.
Once I had the decision to make hiring decisions, that is when I considered myself finally in a place where I could start to be the change that I wanted to see in the world.
Yeah.
So before I became a hiring manager, I was a little less vocal because I didn't want anything to be used against me to prevent me from getting that position where then I knew for a fact it was within my control to make incremental change, right? Maybe I got a chance to hire 2 people a year. That's 2 more people maybe that would have been considered that perhaps wouldn't have been if I wasn't in that position. And then I think being in HR and having the ability to influence hiring managers across the board, I
Yeah.
also had to be careful in my ascension with how hard I'm pushing and what I'm saying and how I'm influencing in
Yeah.
these spaces. Because as Mita rightly said, once you start to speak up, there are consequences, especially if your work environment is not a healthy one. So I think my approach was a little bit more measured. I think we're after the same thing. We just got there in a little bit
But
different way,
but
right?
Olivia, the reality is I have a significant amount of privilege versus you. You're a black woman in corporate America, Olivia. That comes with so many freaking labels, challenges, and already the system working against you. And I really want to call this out. There's a cost to speaking out, right? The cost of me speaking out is so much lower than the cost for you speaking out. So if I didn't act on that privilege, shame on me, right?
That's fair, but you know how I feel about this. I think the privilege conversation is probably warranted. For me, I consider that noise for me. Like what other people in corporate America
I know
is
you
like,
do, but I'm going to challenge you on this. But that held you back. You think that did not hold you back. But in that organization that you were in, you looked around. I could count on one hand the hiring managers who look like you around the world, Olivia,
that
around the freaking world. So tell me this. How are you going to go up and be like, I've just entered the corporate world after having a stellar career in another space that was not built for me to thrive, forget even survive, not even, yeah, forget survive, even thrive, right? Postcard
yeah,
for crying out loud. You enter into corporate America trying to restart your career from the ground up, having to prove yourself. You had very different consequences. I came into this, you have to recognize my journey. I came in as an intern, a 19-year-old intern. So you'd
super fan.
understand, I grew up here. So it was like I was going to mom and dad, and I was like, come on, mom and dad. Like, I'm growing up. Like, we need this. That's my privilege. I'm not saying this is the privilege of all other brown men and women that look like me either. That was my privilege. And so that's where I always tell people, like, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to approach it. There are many different ways to approach it. But don't just freaking sit back and say, I'm going to wait for this moment in time to happen to figure this out. You know what I mean? And never do it ultimately. Figure out what that path is and then speak up. But it doesn't mean, because I remember having this conversation in 2020 when we first connected. And I had a conversation with a member of my team, and God bless his heart, because he gave me the biggest gift he could have possibly given. And he shared the same thing that you did. Archita, I don't want to be the face of this conversation. And I was like, what the heck? I could not even fathom this. I'm like, you're the only black man we have in this business. Like, why would you not speak up? And that was my fault. You see what I mean? And that's what we put on people who are the onlys in the workplace. And it's our responsibility as leaders is to first, as we always say on the podcast, go to the people, get to know them, be curious, understand where and how they want to show up in their own journey of quote unquote transforming the workplace, activism, whatever it might be, and don't put your understanding of expectations on them as the only way to do it.
I'm cheering in my seat, Archita, because I think the whole point of having this dialogue as people are listening, there is the difference in our stories of, yes, I'm Black in corporate America, you're brown in corporate America. We're both immigrants. Yeah, we're both women. You grew up in the company, whereas I was a mid-career hire. That major difference, right?
Huge
So
difference.
I think you hit on something that I was hoping we would get to organically, which is there is no right answer here.
Yes.
There is no right answer here, right? You show up the way it best serves you. Okay. Do not let me tell you how to show up. Don't let Archita tell you how to show up. For God's sake, don't let your boss tell you how to show up. You have to decide for yourself. What do you want? What do you want to be known for? What legacy do you want to leave behind? What goal are you after? You get to define for yourself, dear audience. You get to define for yourself exactly who and what you want to be in any moment of time. And no one gets to define that for you. Even me and Archita, well-meaning yahoos over here, right? Don't let us define it for you either. This is something you have to sit with yourself and ask yourself how to show up. And I'm going to tell you guys a story real quick before we move on to the second topic here. But I was talking to someone in this new space. I want to say it was like last week or the week before. And she asked me, and in this new space, super diverse company, right? There's diversity up and down the chain. There's multiple different companies under this one umbrella. And the level of diversity fluctuates from company to company, but overall, our diversity numbers are good. And so this fellow Black woman said to me, she said, Olivia, I'm really concerned about the diversity numbers at our company. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do about it? And she was like, well, I don't know. I think our managers should. There it is. There it is. My least favorite phrase in the history of my manager should, immediately giving away your power. So my question back to her was, what do you want to do with your life, with your career? What do you want to do? And what we got to is she wanted to be a chief people officer. And I said, okay, so if you want to be a chief people officer and you want to impact the workplace in that way, how does this DEI crusade help you on your journey? And she paused for a second. Well, it's important to me because I feel like there's not enough of us. And I said, well, why don't you put yourself in a position where you can influence the number of people that are in your company? And she paused again and thought about it, right? Sometimes we're worried about the wrong things, depending on where we are in our journey. If you are entry level and you're trying to fight against the broken rung and you're trying to get yourselves to be promoted, to become a manager, or you're trying to empower yourself so that your impact across the company is felt deeper, maybe right now, this moment isn't the moment to worry about your diversity numbers. Maybe that comes in a year when you're in a position to positively impact those results. I think it's very important to identify where you are, what you want for yourself, second, and then how do you impact the space that you occupy?
Yeah. And can I add one more bit to that? That is really good advice there. Like one other piece I would add to it, because we discussed this in the beginning part of this. I slightly differ in that, but I'm just like, wait on it. But it's true. And also consider this, like on your company that you're in right now is a vessel towards you achieving your dreams, your goals. There are 80 other million spaces you can go to do this work. No one is going to give you a clap and a pat on the back because you fixed it in your company. That's just absurd to me, right? So there are so many other spaces that you can activate and you can engage in. And I remember like after spending almost a lot, like 17, 16 years in one space and moving to a new space, I made a very clear decision. I am not going to engage. Literally, I wrote this down for myself. I will not engage in any DE&I work at this second space that I was occupying because I knew that the focus of this space was very different. It wasn't about all of these things that matter towards people. It was other metrics. So I'm like, I'm here to achieve these things for myself. all of this work that is so important to me, I'm finding other spaces to do it. And I went and sought those spaces, and I went times 3 because I knew I could deliver way more impact over there that could help all these other spaces that I would eventually engage with in some way, shape, or form, versus get obsessed about why can't they fix it here. That's such a waste of our energy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Cream. If you are a corporate girly and you are struggling, you're feeling stuck, maybe you're feeling underpaid, overqualified, you're struggling with your boss, or bigger yet, you're even trying to clearly articulate what it is that you want from your corporate career, I am the coach for you. So if you're ambitious and you've got goals to accomplish and you want to accomplish them quickly, check out my website, oliviacream.com. I would love to help you reach your goals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archita Fritz, your other host of the Embracing Only podcast. If you're ready to leave corporate, or you've changed a couple of corporate jobs and want to start a profitable side brilliance, you've made the decision, but you feel unsure of the next steps, here's how I can help you. I can guide you through a successful transition to entrepreneurship to help turn those ideas into profit. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit me on architafritz.com to accelerate your empowered transitions. Now, back to the episode.
It is such a waste of energy. And you said something so important there. You said, why be obsessed? Because they can fix it here. If the they does not include you and you can't be a part of the fixing, then you're wasting time.
That's it.
It's noise.
It's noise. And literally, it doesn't matter that you look like an only. Like, I really want to tell folks this. It doesn't matter. You do not have a responsibility for your entire brethren to fix it at company A, B, C, or D. Trust me, you do not have a responsibility. Your responsibility is to take care of yourself, your family, achieve your goals, etc. If all this stuff really matters to you, find other spaces where real justice will make a big difference.
I couldn't agree more. We can take our passion and turn them into real results, but the two spaces don't have to be the same. It is not our responsibility to turn around these corporations. It's not our job. And you also said something so powerful that I have to reverse and make sure everybody hears this, right? In terms of, oh my gosh, what you're doing in your company, right? And what you want your journey to look like. You have to be so certain about what you are after and what you are trying to accomplish, that you don't get wrapped up in things that are going to distract you away from your central purpose, right? Some of this DEI work, even though it's well-meaning work, can absolutely distract you from your greater purpose, right? And if you don't hit your greater purpose, then are you really advancing the DEI ball? Some of us, like myself included, I happen to come in this wrapper. I love being a Black woman, right? I love everything about being a Black woman. I love my hair locks. I love how we talk. I love our culture. I love everything about being a Black woman. I do not want to be the face of Black women in America.
That's it. That's so clear.
It's so clear for me. And what I realized is my purpose is to inspire the masses to free themselves so you can live however you want to live. My brand, however, isn't Olivia, the Black woman that is championing this for all Black women. No. It is Olivia, the writer, the speaker, the author, the engineer, the HR executive that wants to free people and help them live the lives that they want to live. Don't put me in a box. Don't put me in a box, right?
The boxes are created by us. Okay, so the reality is, to your point, we come in a wrapper. That's a fact. You get to use that wrapper as an opportunity to thrive. You get to use a wrapper as an opportunity to complain. You get to use that as an opportunity to try to barely survive. But also recognizing, like, with regards to setting your goals, right? As you said, as you're going through all of this and you're setting your goals, etc., you shared this gift with me. Like, you have a choice. You have a choice. How are you going to use those choices in your journey towards building whatever it is that you're building, knowing that you don't have to take on every battle and it's okay?
Because there was a period of time in my life where I tried to take on every battle. And
Yeah.
I was getting so frustrated with taking on all the battles while also trying to move my career forward that what happened to me? I started to get burnt out. I was getting frustrated. My face was breaking out in hives from the stress because I'm trying to do too much. And it wasn't time for me to pick a fight in those
Yeah.
battles. I needed to advance the ball on my career first before
Yeah.
I started to go pick a fight, right? And I want all the ladies here to really internalize this. We all feel passionately about different things, but is now the right time for
Yeah.
you to be picking a fight? If yes, go
Go
pick a
for it.
fight. Go
Yeah.
pick a good fight, right? Go cause some good trouble. But if the answer is no, you're not where you want to be just yet. You should not feel guilty for focusing on yourself first and then picking a fight in close proximity once you get to a place where you feel like you have more influence to do so. There's no shame in that.
No, and I'd especially say this to women of color, because you know what? We're mostly not put in positions where we feel like we have a choice. Just like how you were asked to be like, hey, Olivia, can you come on this stage? Can you come on that stage? Can you come on this stage? But you decided, you were very clear, I do not want to be the face of this. So no, thank you. I don't need that stage. And so, especially women of color, because our white women friends on here have a significant privilege a lot of times in these situations with regards to where they can choose to pick a fight. For a lot of the women of color, they don't. And this is a gift, like another lovely human being on LinkedIn actually gave me, Erin Corinne Johnson, where she said, recognize that rest is a part of all of this as well. Rest should be a part of your goal setting, and not rest in the sense of, let me go get my nails done or whatever the heck else. Maybe that is for you, great. But like actual rest in the midst of all of this stuff is so critical. So really recognize that I'm not asking you to put in a schedule. I highly encourage you to schedule in time for rest, but consider how rest is part of your goal setting as women, as we consistently get called on for extra housework across the board.
100%. I think this is so important, and it's been circulating on both LinkedIn and this thought that you're not supposed to be in motion all the time. And here
Yeah.
comes the challenge, ladies. Believe me, I get you. The challenge is a lot of us, especially boomers and maybe the elder millennials, which I fall into that category. I know Archita falls into the elder millennial category as well. Although I don't know how I feel about the word elder, but whatever. I guess
Geriatric. I call myself geriatric millennial. I like that better.
geriatric millennials. But we tend to, and the way we grew up, we tend to attach our self-worth to how much we accomplish,
Yeah.
right?
I still struggle with that, Olivia. I still struggle with it.
Same.
It's a constant struggle.
Same. I struggle with it. And so we're just going to call that out right now for all the elder millennials and boomers and maybe even some of the Gen Xers.
Yeah.
Do not attach your self-worth to your output. There should be times of focus and crushing your goals. And then there's time of rest and reflection. Your brain physically needs the rest. And what happens when you give your mind a time to rest, a time to relax, a time to reflect, your creativity actually gets better. Your productivity actually goes up when you build in timely rest into what you're doing. So if you find yourself saying things like, power through, I just got to get this done, I got to hustle, I got to take on this. If those words are things that are coming out of your mouth, my suspicion is you suffer from tying your self-worth to productivity, and you need to sit with that, because I'm telling you, the neuroscience information is out there. You will be better. You will be more productive. You will be more creative. You will be more innovative if you stop and rest. You have to do it. You have to do it.
Gosh, yes. I don't know. For a lot of folks, if you've gone through any kind of transition recently, especially, I just had a big one, right? And Olivia, you did too. Like, you moved into a new corporate space. I moved into self-employment. there's this need to prove that you're worthy of this spot and that you're going to keep this spot, right? There's this innate, I would not call it fear, quite frankly, because I've let go of fear. Like, sounds ridiculous that I'm saying this out loud, but really, I don't feel fear anymore. And I feel fear, as we've all discussed, but I really feel extremely equipped to work through my fear. Somebody asked me the other day, how are you doing this? How do you leave a corporate career? And I'm just like, I'm scared as heck. We all say this, right? We're doing this scared. But there's beauty in recognizing, and there's something I've really been thinking about because I'm coming up on my 1 year of self-employment, is how do I intentionally create space for my business where I have this revenue goal, I have all of these other goals. But one of my goals is I have X amount of time wherein I'm using it for, and I don't mean it in a day, in my entire year, like 2 months of time, but I am not doing client work, but I'm not doing creating or like consuming. I'm just like reflecting and resting. Because I did not create this time last year, but I had that gift in the beginning of the year before I went live with this, wherein I inherently had that space. And it gave me that, I still feel that freedom it gave me to go in so many directions, to be creative and unleash like the creativity I didn't know existed. And I feel like I don't know the answer to this yet, but because you're like, you have this big revenue goal and you're like, oh, I can't take the summer off because then what? So this is like, how do you get intentional and make that space for yourself for rest?
It's a good question, but I think the beginning, Archita, is just asking yourself that.
Right.
If you can ask yourself that question and be intentional about answering it, the answers will come to you. But it's sitting down and sitting with it and asking yourself the question and being disciplined about finding the time. There is time for it all. I promise you. The challenge is we don't want to sit down and ask ourselves these important questions. We want to keep in motion, right? And when we keep in motion, you can't find time to answer a question like that because you're too busy doing stuff, which is my problem, right? I'm like, I got stuff to do. I'm crossing things off. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. It wasn't until, and I remember this, oh gosh, it was months ago. Maybe it was over a year ago at this point that you said to me, Olivia, what don't you like about your workday? And I was like, God, I really hate mornings. I'm like an awful morning person and I need to wake up slowly. And you were like, okay, then design your day like that. And it was such a simple, flippant comment that I was like, well, duh, right? Can I block some time in the morning to think, to ease into my day instead of rolling out of bed and jumping right onto the computer and starting to crank away? And just that small change has made a world of difference in my work days. Archita, just that small change. So I encourage everyone, whatever it is that you don't like about your workday, whatever it is that you don't like about how you're functioning, first identify those things and then set about creating solutions to them. You'd be so impressed to find out how you can design your days in a way that works for you.
Gosh, yes. This is like music to my ears because I was in this networking call last week and I shared this on LinkedIn and there were 93 different people and they matched you using AI, like strategically. And I was talking to a couple of folks going through significant transition and they were just like, I think this is what I want to do next. And they were giving me titles and they were giving me like positions and stuff like that. And they were like, well, how did you decide? And I was like, I did not approach it like this, which was, I wish I had done this approach I had in the beginning of my career. I asked myself this question, which is what you just brought up. What do I want my life to look like every week? And I know this is a very basic question coaches ask, what does your ideal work week look like? Was the question I started with. And then when I started with that, and I truly took the time to write it out. And then I asked myself, well, okay, now how do I go create opportunities to help me live this week? It is the most liberating thing because I can tell you the best thing that I know that has created space for me. Like I would love more rest, but it's created so much space. It's very clear what opportunities I'm going to say no to. It's very clear. So I don't even chase those anymore. Like I was chasing it like a lunatic for the first 17 years of my life because I was like, oh, that's going to help me land this quote unquote title, this quote unquote salary, this quote unquote whatever, right? Like fame, claim to name, whatever it is. But now when I'm like so clear on, I am not letting anyone mess with this week. And of course, I evaluate this consistently to be like, hey, is this what's working, what's not, etc. But it's easier to say no. So you set your own boundaries, and then you can then go create space for yourself.
Gosh, Archita, I wish I could just bottle you up and like carry you around with me, right? Oh my gosh. But everything that you're saying is so true. And it sounds so simple. We make it difficult, right? Figure out what you want to do. Go figure out the problems that are plaguing you today. Set about creating a solution for them and then stick to it, right? We talk about this all the time. You have to honor your no's so you can embrace your yeses. You have to honor the no's. And if you are someone that struggles with saying no, God bless, girl. Go figure that out, because I'm telling you, saying yes to everything does nothing but slow you down and distract you from getting to where you need to be so you have the maximum impact on this earth. Stop saying yes to everything. It's not doing you any favors. I promise you. Okay.
I feel like that's the summary of this episode, Olivia, right there. Both for the first half of what we were talking about and the second half of what we're talking about, which is honor your no's across the board, right? Extra housework or your goal setting, it's honoring the no's.
Absolutely. And I know we're coming up on time here. We definitely went longer. We wanted to hit goal setting, but we'll talk about that maybe on Instagram here.
Yes.
Let's shift to our haters for a second. And one thing I've observed with almost every woman that we have had the pleasure of talking to is someone somewhere along the journey has been a hater. Whether it's your experiences on LinkedIn with some of these messages that we get from our male friends, or it's other women along your journey that for whatever reason don't like what you're doing or don't like how you're moving or whatever. Like, every time you get a woman, and maybe the men too, I'm not a man, so I can't speak to it, but guys, we're not leaving you out here. Every time you're on a path to do something big, here comes the haters, right? Yeah. How do you deal with that? Or what do you think about that in general?
You know, what I think about is goodbye next to the haters, right? But how do I deal with that? Gosh, I don't know. Olivia, you tell me if you feel this way, but ever since I was in 5th grade, I remember having haters. Okay, this is like literally my experience, because for me, it's like seared in my memory, 5th grade, because there was this thing at school, middle school, and I was in a British school, like a British school system. So we had head girls and all of this jazz. And so I think I've shared the story before where they asked us to raise our hand up to nominate ourselves for head girl for middle school. And a lot of people had raised their hands up. They went up, they spoke, etc. And it was very common. And usually the girls, it was an all-girls school. The girls whose parents had a bunch of money, who were very involved in school, were the ones who got elected. Like, it's just irrespective of, they were popular kids. And here I was, my parents were both working. It was impossible for them to ever be at school. Like, they were there for important events, but not just to like schmooze and chat every afternoon. And they didn't have money to just throw around, right? So I was like, there's no way. So I'd not even raised my hand. And Mrs. Fayaz, I love her to death. She was my geography teacher at that time and my class teacher. And she was like, Achita, you should go up there. I'm like, what the heck? Hell no, I'm not going up there. Nobody even likes me. And she's like, do you have a message to share? And do you think you can make a difference? And I can't tell you what that can do to a 5th grader. I was just like, holy crap. Yes, I absolutely believe I can make a difference here. And I do have a message to share. So I got up there, I spoke, and freaking heck, I became head girl in like middle school. And then I think that's such an important lesson for me, because I had a lot of haters once I became head girl. Because literally people were like, what the heck? Why is this girl the head girl, right? Who the heck is she? And it happened again, like in high school. And it happened again in 12th grade. And it happened in so many spaces. I did not give a crap. I'll tell you, for most of my life, I could not care less. I'm like, that's a you problem. It's not a me problem. I'll tell you where this mattered. And I do not know the answer to this yet. And I'm going to figure this out in therapy now. And I'm going to write this down because you're making me think about this. But the moment it mattered to me was when I was having the best year of my career, the best year of my freaking career. And someone inconsequential to my freaking life, to my life, who had a significant amount of power, right, told me I was incompetent, that's when it had an effect on me. And I do not know why. I do not know why. And I will, as I said, I'll figure this out. But for 30 plus years of my adult existence, I could have given two hoots about what other people thought because I was on a mission to get things done and make a difference.
So it's interesting, and I'm not a therapist, you guys. I am a cognitive behavioral coach, but I am not a therapist. But because I know you so well, Archita, I have to ask you this question. And you said something, someone who had a significant amount of power.
Yeah.
Said that, which is interesting why you would even bring up that detail.
It was very specific. I was yeah.
Is it because of your specific relationship with power?
Yes.
Over the course of your career?
Yes,
right?
That's it.
So I say this to people, when a hater triggers you, you need to sit down and figure out what's wrong with you. Why is it that...
Say that again. That is so important.
When a hater triggers you, this might be going on Instagram today.
Yes.
When a hater triggers you, you need to figure out what's wrong with you. Yes. Why it bothers you.
Yes.
Not what's wrong with them. Because they are being who they are, my love.
Yes.
Haters are who they are. That's like asking my cat why he isn't acting like my dog. Because he's a doggone cat. That's why. Like, he does cat things. So it is ridiculous for us to spend so much time asking ourselves, why are haters like this? Why do they do this? What's wrong with them? Spending all this time and energy focusing on the irrelevant hater. You are now giving them your power. You are fueling them. They are sucking the life force from you, because where your attention goes, energy flows. So if you're busy focusing on this inconsequential hater because you need validation, or you struggle with power dynamics, or because someone that looked like this person told you you would never be shit when you were little and now you're triggered, right? Whatever the reason is why you're triggered, you need to sit with that and figure that out for yourself. But it is you that something is wrong with, not them. And if we start looking at that this way, we minimize the effect that the haters have on our lives, because we realize we can control it, right? It's like swatting away a mosquito, right? That's about as important as what haters should be to you. It's a nagging mosquito that you just need to get out of your face so you can continue about your day. We shouldn't give them a single thought. And I will share this. I know you guys have heard me say this. At some point in time in my career, and I'll share a little story similar to Archita. I think it was back in 2009, I became the first Black female engineer officer in Coast Guard history. It was two of us that became the first that year. And I had someone tell me that I would never succeed in that job, that men would never follow me, and that I was going to fail. And I was like, hold my beer, right? Because I had learned super early on that you do not dictate my fate. I dictate my fate. And if I say I'm going to be amazing, guess what? I'm going to be flipping amazing. And my manager at the time, my captain at the time, said to me, because he was probably hearing some of this noise as well, he said to me that the only person that I need to impress is myself. What do I want to do with my time in this role? I need to focus on that. Everything else is noise. And I have never forgotten that message my entire life. And I pass that all on to you all today.
Yes. No, I love everything you said. Like, really, that part that you repeated twice is so critical. It's so critical. When someone triggers you, it is going to be the hardest freaking thing to do. Because let me just put this out there as well. There are narcissists in this world. Like, I'm not going to take this out of there. Okay. Like, they exist. They are absolutely there. But when that happens and you happen to walk in the space of this human scum, please sit back and ask yourself this question of, why does this person trigger me so much? And it's going to be hard on your ego to ask yourself this question. Okay. It's going to be really hard on your ego, because you're going to recognize that there are probably going to be some things that you do that are similar to what this person does. And you have to unlearn them on your own journey in order to let this shit go. You might also recognize, you know what? I don't need this energy around me. I'm going to go find another space because there are lots of circumstances out of your control. So it's like the second question, right? Like, first ask, why is it triggering me? Two, what can I control? Like you share all the time, right, Olivia? Now, with what I can control, what are my choices? What am I going to do? I cannot tell you how critical it is. Like, I wish this was probably not I wish because it's taught me, right? All these situations teach you things. But this would have been the path I would have followed when I had this situation, which I ultimately did 16 months later. And sometimes you have to go through trial by fire to figure out for yourself on the other end, because I don't want to diminish what abuse and trauma can do to you. I don't want to diminish it because you're not stupid to experience abuse. You're not stupid to have experienced trauma. You're valid in all of your experiences. But now, like even now up to this point, like this is as I said, I'm going to unpack with my therapist, is like all these experiences, like why are they so triggering? What can I do about it? And how can I move on in pursuit of whatever I'm driving? Because guess what? The only thing we know besides death is that there will be haters as we grow and we build things in this world.
It's a fact. If you don't want to have any haters, do nothing.
Yeah.
Be average. Blend in.
Average, like do nothing. Quite frankly. Yeah.
Do nothing. And guess what? Even when you're sitting there drinking water and chewing gum, they're going to talk about you anyways.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about you anyways. So if you want to be great, you got to figure out how to kill the noise and deal with the haters. Because that is a sure sign. When you start gathering haters, that is a sure sign that you are on your way to doing something big.
Yes, that's a perfect place to pause because we've had a nice, meaty little 50-minute episode here. Super excited that we had a chance to have this conversation in this, like in February at least, Olivia. But what are like the 3 key takeaways here for our audience as they walk away from this episode?
Yeah, 3 key takeaways. So the first one, Archita already said it. Honor your no's so that you can embrace your yeses. That word no will set you free. Okay.
Right.
And in order to honor your no and embrace your yeses, you have to know what it is that you want.
Yes.
So set your goals. This is so important, you guys. You hear us say all the time, if people just skip over this advice, we are giving you the keys to the test here. Figure out what it is that you want. And what you want today could be different in 8 months, can be different in 18 months. Pivots are totally fine. But you have to start off very clearly knowing what you want so that you can align your actions. You can honor your yeses that are in alignment with what you want, and everything else gets said no to, okay, to preserve yourself. And then lastly is a message on haters. If you're doing something great, you're going to have them. And if they trigger you, sit with it. Sit with the triggering and figure out why it is that they trigger you. And be humble enough and transparent and vulnerable enough with yourself to say, I am triggered because when you name a thing, you take away its power. So figure out why you're being triggered so that you can move past it and you can wave hello to your haters on your way to glory.
Yes, I love that. Well, we really hope you enjoyed this episode of Real Talk with Olivia and myself, Archita. Join us. We have a whole slew of amazing women lined up this season, and we cannot wait to share their voices and stories with you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.